Here's your wrestling news for May 19th, 2022. And your headlines for today include: spoiler on former WWE superstar making debut during Rampage this week, Johnny Elite makes his AEW debut as Joker card entry, AEW on TV Twitter account botches name of the Joker on Dynamite, WWE accused of pitting talent against each other with public statement about Sasha Banks and Naomi, Sasha Banks has alienated everyone backstage in WWE, pulled from WWE live events, Cameron accuses Sasha Banks of convincing Naomi to walk off during WWE Raw, Cena Teases WWE return could be around the corner, what is Kenny Omega up to while recovering from his injuries, Jim Ross confirms length of his AEW contract extension, and more. We are kicking off today with AEW as last night saw the taping of this Friday's Rampage, and a surprising name made their presence felt on the show. This is your official spoiler warning for AEW Rampage, so if you want to go into the Friday show completely fresh, please skip the next 30 seconds of this video. During Rampage, Killian Dane made his AEW debut in a match against Shawn Spears and worked under the name Big Damo. Damo got a loud response from the fans, but still fell to Spears, who cut a post-match promo about being a giant killer, hyping up his upcoming cage match against Wardlow. Dane was cut last June due to budget cuts by WWE, but after this impressive showing, he may soon become a regular on AEW programming. The Rampage taping came after AEW Dynamite, and ahead of the show, a Joker was promised for the Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament, and fans speculated on who it could be. In a match against Samoa Joe, it was the former John Morrison who made his AEW debut, and like we've seen so many times before, he worked under a new name. Given that this was in AEW, Morrison worked as Johnny Elite in the opening contest, but came up short against the Samoan Submission Machine. With his in-ring skills, flashy jacket, and slow-mo entrance, Johnny Elite certainly came across as a star on last night's Dynamite, and while he didn't advance in the tournament, this was an impressive first outing for him in All Elite Wrestling. Johnny Elite made his debut for AEW this week, but it's safe to say that someone working for the company expected a different Johnny to be the Joker. Soon after his debut, the AEW Twitter account said that Samoa Joe's mystery opponent was Johnny Gargano, even tagging the former NXT champion before deleting the entire tweet. Gargano was among those rumored to debut for AEW this week, but that didn't transpire, no matter what the AEW Twitter account said on this unfortunate botch. Now, after Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of this week's Raw, WWE sent out a scathing public statement on the matter, hitting out that the professionalism, or lack thereof, of the women's tag team champions. One of the most interesting parts of the statement suggests that Banks and Naomi weren't comfortable with sharing the ring with certain superstars, as it reads, "They claim they weren't respected enough as tag team champions, and even though they had 8 hours to rehearse and construct their match, they claim they were uncomfortable in the ring with two of their opponents, even though they'd had matches with those two individuals in the past with no consequence." The wording of this part of the statement was very deliberate, as according to Fightful Select, there's a belief backstage that this statement was put out to cause dissension within the roster. Their report reads, "One person close to the situation believed that the statement WWE put out during the show was a way to pit those talent against each other, but also believed that all of those involved would be quick to reach out to one another to clear up any misconceptions. WWE may want to see superstars pitted against each other, but it's hard to see what their end goal is in all of this, but things are clearly tense with or without the WWE Women's Tag Team Champs being there." Although both Banks and Naomi walked out of Raw this week, the consensus is that Sasha was the instigator and that her tag team partner walked out in solidarity with the boss. It's been reported that Banks has backstage heat for her actions, both from management and those below management, but her standing in the company is worse than first thought. When Ringside News asked, they said how Banks is not well liked backstage and has alienated everyone with her actions. On the other hand, Naomi is said to be well liked despite what transpired during this week's episode of the Red Brand. Fightful added to this report as their sources within WWE have said that the consensus is that the pair were in the wrong for walking out of a show that fans had paid money to see them on. An established anonymous WWE superstar compared the situation to Stone Cold Steve Austin walking out in 2002 after learning he'd lose to Brock Lesnar on Raw, and said that unlike Austin, Banks and Naomi left during the show. One female superstar Fightful spoke to said that she didn't see anything particularly egregious worth leaving the show over, but understands being frustrated creatively. Fightful's summary is that while talent may understand being frustrated and may even understand walking out, but that there's no excuse for walking out while a show is going on. With no matches in her future and no friends backstage to speak of, things have quickly spiraled for Sasha Banks, who may be losing her title as well in the not-so-distant future. Everyone's had something to say about the women's tag team champions walking out of Raw, including Naomi's first tag team partner, Cameron. Cameron and Naomi worked as the Funkadactyls from 2012 to 2014 and had a brief feud after their split, but she doesn't believe that walking out is something the Glow would do, at least not on her own. Speaking to SE Scoops, Cameron discussed Naomi's walkout and accused Sasha Banks of forcing Naomi into this difficult situation. "My girl Naomi, she wouldn't do this, and I feel like she wouldn't do this unless she had someone manipulating and telling her how to do this. Let's best believe if I was there, coming as a Funkadactyl, we wouldn't have this happening at all." Again, Sasha is Sasha. You have Snoop Dogg as your cousin, you're a top athlete, you can do whatever the f you want to do. You can literally say what you want to say, do what you want to do with no repercussion. And if you're a star athlete, I feel like she can back it up. One thing that she can do is she can back it up. It's not like, oh, she can have all these people who can back her up without having the talent to do so or the beauty. Cameron is hardly alone with her theory, as many have said that Banks was the instigator of this incident and that her tag partner felt it was necessary for her to walk out in solidarity. Naomi has been with WWE for much longer than Banks and has been on TV for close to 12 years now, but it may be being manipulated by Sasha Banks that is what the Glow is remembered for. The WWE Women's Tag Team Champions left over creative differences with Vince McMahon, and it may be some time before they wrestle again. Brad Shepard reports that after the incident this week, that Banks and Naomi have been pulled from all WWE live events from now until the end of July. As for what this means for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, that's unclear, as WWE would want the titles to be defended, but that could mean stripping the champs of the gold. Ultimately, WWE will do what they believe is in their best interest, and while the Boss and the Glow have impressive in-ring skills, don't expect either woman on TV anytime soon. Now on June 27th, in just 39 days, John Cena will have reached 20 years since his WWE TV debut, interrupting Kurt Angle with a declaration of ruthless aggression. With John's career in Hollywood continuing to grow, Cena has become less and less available for WWE appearances, but that doesn't mean he's finished with the ring just yet. Sitting down with Adam's Apple, Cena discussed a possible return and teased it could be very soon. "I know in WWE years I turned 20 pretty soon, so that's a pretty big thing. And from a pretty storied class of folks, Batista, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, who kind of all turned 20 this year. I'm aware that's coming around the corner, and who knows." Cena's last televised match in WWE was against Roman Reigns in a losing effort against the Tribal Chief at last year's SummerSlam. For what it's worth, United States Champion Theory has been teasing a match with John, sharing a graphic of a match card on social media. And while the 16-time world champion is focused on establishing his Hollywood career, he's not finished with wrestling just yet. More from AEW now, as it's been months since fans last saw Kenny Omega appear on TV, with his most recent appearance being back at Full Gear 2021. After losing the AEW World Championship, Omega has been out recovering from various injuries, but now he's back, albeit in a backstage role. PW Insider were the first to report that Omega has resumed his roles as executive vice president of the company and that he's been back for several weeks now. It's noted that Omega has been producing some of the women's division matches and has been working hard on the upcoming AEW console game. Omega was also the one who told Brian Cage that the company would be picking up his contract earlier this year. The former AEW World Champion's most recent surgery was back in April to repair a sports hernia, a process that usually requires over 2 months to recover from. And while there's no timeline for his on-screen return, it's great that Omega is back at work. And we're ending today with Jim Ross, who was on hand to call the action on Dynamite last night, and the Oklahoma native will be sticking with AEW for some time to come. On his Grilling JR podcast, Ross said he signed an extension with AEW not too long ago and that he believes it's for about a year and a half. JR thanked Tony Khan for the confidence he has in him, and while the WWE Hall of Famer has slipped up in his commentary from time to time, he remains one of the most iconic voices in all of wrestling. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.